If you look at the research around happiness, research suggests what makes people happy is the quality and depth of relationships throughout their life. And men are not supported in our culture to nurture that aspect of themselves. The challenge for men is enabling a way to express them in a safe way with each other and with the people around us. Getting access to that part of ourselves that's often suppressed by our culture and by our upbringing, by the expectations of what a man is, that actually shuts down our humanity. So part of what being a man in 2024 is about not discarding anything, that we have. It's more about building more of what we are. And you talk about emotions and being able to speak authentically to other people and other men in particular. That's something that has to be learned. Foundational to success in anything that you're doing in your home or personal life, but in your, corporate or business life, professional life. The research about that is crystal clear, but men are not set up to be successful in that sense. Spending time with men is actually good medicine. And in nature-based cultures, that's how it is. Men have always spent time with men talking about men's stuff. In Western culture, that's been lost. We don't want to go too deep because we feel like we might be judged, or we feel like, someone's going to laugh at us. And that's part of the change we need to encourage in our societies. That it's okay just to talk about how you are. And when you're able to do that, you start becoming more full, more whole as a human and more whole as a man. And that's really what's really important.
Have you ever wanted to share something vulnerable, but you just felt too afraid of being judged? Sometimes all it takes is hearing a similar story to remind you that you're not alone in your thoughts. In this episode, we discuss the cultural restraints and societal pressures that hinder men from expressing their emotions openly while looking at what it means to be successful as a man. Welcome to Move Your Mind, your compass for your journey through life. Join us as we navigate the unknown, offering insights, wisdom, and inspiration to guide you toward personal success and fulfillment. I'm your host, Nick Brax, and I've been working in the mental health space for the past 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to empower you to become the highest version of yourself. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing, and as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. Today's guests, Bruce Bramall and David Mallard, join me to challenge your views on masculinity and offer you advice on how to build a non-judgmental support system around you. If you're looking to redefine what success and fulfillment means to you, then stick around. Bruce and David, thank you so much for making the time to come and have this chat.
Our pleasure. Nick.
Thanks.
Appreciate you both coming on. We might jump in by getting each of you to just introduce yourselves and give a bit of a background on the work you do. So maybe David, we'll start with you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So, by way of background, I'm president of an organisation called Melbourne Men's Group, and we founded our group in 1998. So we've been around for 26 years, and we offer men's circles in different parts of Melbourne, four different regions of Melbourne, as well as offering men the opportunity to look into themselves and hold up the mirror to themselves through some deep dive workshops that were designed and run by men. And it's all about personal growth, well-being, and community, which is really important. And so, we've been doing what we do for a long time, and I'm really glad that you're interested in having a chat about it. So thanks for that, Nick.
Appreciate it. No, well, it's such a huge area. I think amazing work that you're both doing. So Bruce, would you mind just giving a quick introduction on yourself as well?
Yeah, Nick. I've been around Melbourne Men's Group now for about 23 years. By way of background, I've had a couple of very successful companies in the diagnostic medical imaging technology faculty. Competitive skydiver, competed all over the world in world meets and all that sort of stuff. So, led a very active life. Attempted Everest a couple of times, and as I say, the Everest I'm climbing up at the moment is the Everest of men's health. And as I say, I've been involved in MELBOURNE Men's Group now for about 23 years, and it is a steep climb. It's great to be able to have a conversation with you today, and let's just see where it goes to.
Thank you, mate. And yes, skydiving. I think I'd be terrified to do that. That's one thing that's on the bucket list, but that terrifies me. It really does.
Your goal is to empty the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. At some point. I might need some encouragement for that one, though. With the topic of men's mental health, what are some of the things that hold men back from getting help that you guys have seen?
There's a collective restraint on men that's a cultural restraint. And, with the whole Western, the concept of Western masculinity, there's aspects of that where, don't talk about how you feel. You'll talk about your job, or talk about what car you drive, or talk about what footy team you follow, but anything else tends to be out of bounds. And that doesn't support anyone in terms of nurturing quality relationships. And, with that in mind, if you look at the research around happiness, generally speaking, the research suggests what makes people happy is the quality and depth of relationships throughout their life. And it has a significant influence in terms of length and quality of life as well. So depth of relationship is important, and quality of relationship is important, and men are not supported in our culture, generally speaking, to nurture that aspect of themselves. And we find through our group, there's a lot in our culture. You would have seen the research. Men are very isolated, often alone, and don't reach out for help, nor do they know how to reach out for help, because of that sense of, we need to stay apart from each other as men, and, what we do is countercultural, in fact, but it's actually really neat.
For me, I think I kind of sum it up in two places. I think societally, men are pigeonholed. Men have for a long time, men and boys have for a long time been put in a certain place, and that's where society recognises that they will be, and it's hard for them to break out of that. And a second challenge that I see for men in today's world, and I say men and boys, is women. Women have a particular role that they play in how men are, and women don't understand men as much as men don't understand women. And at the movie, for instance, there was a comment made by the woman who was in the film about she gets confused when men go quiet. And I had a conversation with her about that. And without going into depth, a man going quiet is a time when a woman ought to just let him alone, because he's gone to his cave. He's gone to his cave to sort things out, and he'll come out having sorted things out because he's got all the tools there to sort them out. If women would just let him go and do that and then come out in the full knowledge and agreement that he will come out, things would change a little bit. And so women have a role to play in men's health, and society has a role to play in men's health. And, of course, men have a significant role to play in their own health and well-being. And that's what we're doing at MELBOURNE Men's Group. We're assisting men to walk down that path.
Yeah. No, well, it's a great point. And men, I guess it becomes a circular problem because men aren't taught how to express emotion a lot of the time. And or even if we do want to feel embarrassed or worried? Are we going to be judged? Does that mean we're not a man? And I think that's a big thing that needs to be destigmatized. You know, what does it actually mean to be a man? And that's a question I had for both of you guys. So maybe David, you can go first on this one. What would you say for any men, especially men listening? A lot of our audience are looking for advice in this area. You know, what would you say it means to be a man?
It's a really great question, and it's, you know, if you were to ask that question 100, 200, 300 years ago, you'd probably get a different answer. Having said that, I think what we are about and what my perception is that men are okay, right? We've got a set of amazing qualities and got these great characteristics, we can all learn a lot about ourselves, and we can learn to be more human than what our society has sort of created, in the sense that we have the same emotions that women do. And the challenge for men is enabling a way to express them in a safe way with each other and with the people around us. And in getting access to that part of ourselves that's often suppressed by our culture and by our upbringing, by the expectations of what a man is, that actually shuts down our humanity. And so part of what being a man in, 2024 is about not discarding anything, that we have. It's more about building more of what we are, building on those qualities that we have, but building out those parts of us that are suppressed, And you talk about emotions and being able to, speak authentically to other people and other men in particular. That's something that has to be learned. It's like emotional intelligence, as you know. It's foundation to success in anything that you're doing in your home or personal life, but in your corporate or business life, professional life. The research about that is crystal clear. But men are not sort of set up to be successful in that sense. So there's in terms of being more balanced, that's what I would. That's sort of my aspiration, I guess, for men in the work that we do with men, in that one-to-one work and in those men's circles where we just talk about how we are and how we're feeling without any judgment, without any fixing, And because it's very clear that spending time with men is actually good medicine. And in nature-based cultures, that's how it is. Men have always spent time with men talking about men's stuff. In Western culture, that's been lost. And, we have this, we don't want to go too deep because we feel like we might be judged, or we feel like, someone's going to laugh at us. And that's part of the change we need to encourage in our societies, that it's okay just to talk about how you are. And when you're able to do that, you start becoming more full, more whole as a human and more whole as a man. And that's really what's really important.
I love that explanation there about what it means to be a man isn't actually having to change any of these other, qualities and aspects that we've been taught that a man traditionally is, because they're all healthy as well. But it's just a bit imbalanced because that emotional side's often not there, that communication side. Yeah. So just adding extra tools to what's already there, because I think in this day and age, more than ever, I feel like men just don't really know where they sit. There's the world's changed so much.
And one of the aspects of this, I think, is that men are not celebrated in our culture. And men need to be celebrated for all the amazing things and all the amazing qualities they have. People are starved of recognition, particularly men.
Yeah.
And that's something that has to be, I think it has to be said. And men, like everyone, need to learn more about themselves and their internal architecture. And, why they do what they do, that whole question of self-awareness and building that emotional intelligence piece and understanding, yourself. And when you're able to do that, my experience has been, and I've had a lot of experience in, business and corporate and led teams and done lots of interesting things and still do. That's the stuff that makes the biggest difference in your life. When you get closer to who you actually are. And this is what we hear a lot through our men's group processes. Men they're searching for something. The men that turn up to our groups, they're searching for something because there's something that's not fulfilled in their life. And then invariably that's about the question of, well, who am I really?
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at NickBrax. I really appreciate your ongoing support. And that's not necessarily correlated with success as well. Like often you could be incredibly successful in your career. Yeah. You might not know who you are, but you've channeled everything into trying to prove yourself, trying to do something you thought you should do, trying to get your validation through that.
Well, that's so interesting because, in many respects, people would call me successful in some ways. Because I used to be a chief auditor at Australia Post and, in corporate roles and things. And that's successful in some minds, but I wasn't born to be an auditor. I'm damn sure I know that. And so while I did that, while I played that role, and I was good at it, it wasn't necessarily actually fulfilling for what I'm here to do, So the notions of success, that's a whole other conversation, I think. The whole men's, the whole idea of a men's group and men's support organisation is somewhat countercultural in terms of, the predominant expectations of masculinity.
Are there a lot of men who feel like they can't just be okay just being themselves because they feel like, well, if I'm a man, I need to provide. How am I going to have a partner if I can't provide for her? And all these pressures, how much does that play into it?
It plays a big part. I think, Nick, that, in my experience, we have lots of, new participants coming through the doors, often, in early to mid-20s, early 30s to 40s, go through that midlife transition. And what's interesting to me is that over the 26 years, the themes that they talk about are pretty much unchanged over that whole period. The theme of isolation, they don't know where to go for support. There's not a lot of support out there for men, right? But certainly isolation, that sense of confusion around what does it actually mean to be a man, and the people who turn up, they're the brave people who actually have stepped over the line and who have actually shown up at a men's circle without knowing anyone and without knowing really what's going to happen. So, we come face to face with a very small minority of the male population in our city. They're the ones who are brave enough to actually give it a go. But what's interesting about that is, once they step into the space and into the circle and they get acknowledged, they get acknowledged for turning up, and we acknowledge their bravery because we know it takes a lot of courage to actually just walk through the doors. All right. Well, what we often hear is that, and I remember this example really clearly from a circle we ran. We have a talking stick and we just encourage people to talk about how they feel. And if they don't want to say anything, they don't say anything. That's fine. But we went around the circle and there was a guy who hadn't said anything, and he picked up the stick at the end and he said, I've listened to everything that's been said here. I've heard everything you've said. And the only thing I want to contribute is this. And he said, now I don't feel so alone. And that's all he said. And it was emblematic of the culture and the way men are, is we often think that we're the only one who feels this way. But when you're in the when you're in this talking circle with these other men, what you hear is that actually we all the same. And we all have our challenges, and we've all got our issues to address, and everyone has got them. And it's not like I'm alone. I'm actually feeling like I've got a network of people around me, and I feel different about those issues that I have because I know I'm not the only person who's challenged by them. And so in that circle process, there's actually can be quite a revelation for people to recognise, actually I am, we are in this together. And as Bruce said, we're not trying to fix you because you don't need to be fixed, right? You're not broken. But you can learn a lot about yourself if you choose to. As Bruce said, it's all about choice and how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And so, that environment where you can actually ask those deeper questions and not be judged and be supported and recognise that everyone's got this stuff is very therapeutic, even though we're not trying to fix you, but it has a therapeutic outcome. And that's often a revelation for a lot of men because they recognise that, oh, shit, okay, I feel different about this now because I feel like everyone is, everyone kind of sounds like me. So there's medicine in men spending time with other men.
We finish every episode with 5 closing questions. So these can be sort of quick answers, whatever comes to mind for you. The first one being, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
My best childhood memory is my dad used to he was a fitter and turner, and he built these shovels for me. And I used to sit in the backyard digging holes with my dad's blue shovel. And I've been doing some personal growth work, and I've just been tapping into the whole aspect of myself called innocence, So I recently bought myself a blue shovel at the Bunnings, the hardware store, and in my corner over there I've got a blue shovel, and it's there to remind me of my innocent childhood.
What do you think is the biggest burden on men's mental health at the moment?
The disconnect between society's expectations and the changing expectations, and feeling as if I'm not good enough. I think there's a big gap there around, and the confusion of actually, what does it actually mean to be a man now in this, this time, 2024? Because that is a question that's a subject of debate. So, I see a lot of men who are really confused, and it's really difficult because it's like, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to be? And so that can be quite confusing for a lot of people, and that's what we see through the men's group. Yeah.
I see that all the time. There's so much confusion about what does it actually mean to be a man. I think it's a big one. So, really important topic. What's your personal definition of happiness?
My personal definition of happiness is living a life I was born to live. So, doing the things that really light me up, that really, float my boat. And, the work that I do with men and, even doing workshops that I do, transformational workshops, with men and other things as well. That's more aligned with what I was born, the gifts I was, given to bring to the world. So, it's doing more of what I want to do and how I want to be, and in line with what I think I'm here for.
I think that's a great message, and that's really all anyone could strive for. Really, just being it comes from what we talked about, being able to really get in touch with yourself and who you are and what you really want, which it's very hard until you start peeling back those layers to know what that is.
Because we get misshapen by our culture, by our families. We get born with a set of potentials, right? And our culture misshapes us. Our families, we look for our, as kids, we look for our parents' approval, and they force us, essentially, not because of any negative reason, but because they force us to be something that we're not, fit in with their expectations. And so that we get parental approval, and, we do the things that we probably don't want to do, and be ways that we actually don't want to be. So we get misshapen by a whole range of things, and from the traumas and tribulations of growing up and childhood, and so our psyche is misshapen from it's. We move into things that we maybe don't want to do, but we do because we want to please other people, and we've got to be successful according to the prevailing culture, which relates to money and have a nice house and all that stuff, and a lot of those things are just not fulfilling necessarily. Whatever success means. But I see it a lot, and I've seen it. Worked in corporate. I remember sitting in the foyer of the organisation I work for, just watching all these men go in and out of the building. They all look miserable. But they had to provide for their families and do what they had, do all that stuff. That's just how it is in our culture, and we do get, placed into roles and do things that we don't necessarily want to do, but we sometimes feel like we have to do, and that's a cause for, inner disharmony.
Absolutely.
It's tricky stuff. Yeah.
It's very complicated. Very, very complicated.
Yes. Yeah.
What are you most afraid of?
What I'm most afraid of is living with regret. And what I mean by that is not living a life that's true to me. And, not having quality relationships and people around me. And I'm at a place in my life I'm absolutely blessed, right, to do the stuff that I do and to have the people around me. And the whole men's group network is an example. Because I know the vast majority of men do not have that. So I'm pretty blessed about that. And so I don't want to live with regret. And that's, and I left corporate 10 years ago, and, I was really successful, but it wasn't really fulfilling for me, So I've left corporate and I've been doing the men's group work for 25 years, in parallel with that. But, I do not want to live with regret, and I'm not going to.
I love that. Great message for anyone listening. So final one, what are you most proud of?
Well, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of the family I have around me. I'm proud of the things that I do in my life, and this beautiful community we've created around Melbourne for men. I'm proud of where I've gotten to and who I am. Yeah. I mean, in a short sentence, I'd say I love who I am.
Great way to end, and appreciate it. Where can anyone listening, if they want to, we'll put this in the show notes for the episode, but where can our listeners go if they want to learn more about the men's group?
Yeah, so we have as you'd expect, we have a website. The address is men's group, one word, .Melbourne. Mensgroup.Melbourne. So
nice and easy.
We have 4 chapters around Melbourne, for north, south, east, west. There's always a meeting every week in different parts of Melbourne. All volunteer. No one gets paid salaries. And it's all volunteers because the men who support it love what they do. They love supporting other men. So mensgroup.melbourne, there's plenty of stuff on the website, and there's details of our meetings and our workshops that we run. It's pretty straightforward.
Make sure to check that out. We'll have that in the show notes. And David, thank you so much. Bruce, you're not here anymore, but thank you for coming on. Yeah. Thank you for making the time.
It's an important one, Nick, so thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bruce Bramall and David Mallard, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or send me a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.